Hey there, welcome to episode 104 of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is all of my Funko Pops that I bought in 2020. And I'm going to count them down from my least favorite to my most favorite. Now, the Funko Pops I'm going to show you, I purchased them all in 2020. And I think that this is all of the Funko Pops that I purchased in 2020. I don't really keep track of what I buy and when I buy it, and I wasn't really planning on doing this list at the start of the year. So maybe in the future, if I'm going to continue to do this, I should keep better track. The only way I was able to go back and verify what I had bought is typically when I get something new, not only do I show it to you guys in one of these videos, but I also post it on my Instagram, which, by the way, if you're not following me on Instagram, you should maybe check me out there. It's Mike's Collection Halifax. Anyway, so I had to go back through my Instagram so I could see every purchase or every toy that I posted in 2020. And that's those are the figures that I piled up here beside me. And I'm going to go through them. I've got them all ranked. Now, I've been doing these year-end lists for years. Now, I've only been on YouTube for less than 2 years, so I haven't really done it on YouTube a whole lot. I did it last year. But before that, I'd been doing it on my blog. That's another thing you can check out if you like. I don't really update it any longer. It hasn't really been updated for the last 2 years since I started doing the YouTube channel. But you can find that at mikescollection.wordpress.com, and you'll find all my old toy reviews and things like that. Anyway, so what I used to do on the blog, and even before that, I would post my year-end lists for toys and movies and music and comic books. I would do all those lists on Facebook. So I have certain rules that I like to stick to. And typically, I would, if I was going to do a best of 2020 list, I would usually stick to only figures that were released in 2020. So even if I got it in 2020, but it was a figure from a prior year, and even if I really liked it, I wouldn't put it on my 2020 list because it wasn't a 2020 figure. But with Funko Pops, it's a little harder to gauge. I don't know. I guess you could probably go on one of the Funko Pop apps and find out the exact release date of these figures. But I wasn't too concerned with it. I originally wasn't planning on doing this video. I was actually starting to compile my list for my best of action figures list, which I will do that before the end of the year. But I was putting that together, and it kind of dawned on me that I get a lot of Funko Pops. And they're really cool. I really like Funko Pops. If I didn't like them, I wouldn't buy so many of them. But they always get left off of my year-end list because no matter how cool a Funko Pop is, quite frankly, it can't compete with, the really nice sculpting and articulation and paint apps and accessories of, say, a Marvel Legends or a G.I. Joe Classified or a Mythic Legions figure or Transformers Earthrise. All that stuff is really high quality. That, Funko Pop, who's basically just, a big-headed little thing. There's no articulation. There's no accessories. It's a whole different category of collectible. So I did want to showcase them though. So rather than just leave them off my list and ignore them, I thought I'll rank these things separately. And this will just be everything I bought in 2020. I'm pretty sure that at least 80-85% of these figures were released in 2020. There might be a couple of holdovers that were released in 2019 that I didn't buy until this year, and but whatever. If you don't care, I don't care. So let's get into this. So at the bottom of my list, I have Selena Meyer from Veep. So why is she at the bottom of my list? Well, I should say before I get too far into this thing, it's not like I'm saying this figure is bad in any way. The thing with making lists for action figures that I buy, it's a little difficult because I do movie lists and I do music lists, and they're a little easier to rank because, if you like an album a lot, you listen to it the most. And sometimes you buy an album expecting to like it, and then it's no good, so you never listen to it. Or you go to a movie expecting to like it, and it sucks, and you don't watch it again. Other ones you really like, you buy it on DVD and you watch it over and over again. With toys, I don't buy them if I don't want them. You can tell by looking at it whether it's good or not. So I don't really end up with a lot of figures that I don't like. That's pretty rare. So I like all these figures. So even the bottom of the list, I'm not saying is bad by any stretch. So This is a fine figure. If you're a Veep fan and you wanted a Selena figure, then I think this would be perfectly adequate. It would make a nice stocking stuffer. But why is she at the bottom of my list? It's kind of a rule I have with Funko Pops is that I typically don't like to buy them if you can't tell who the character is. So even though I might, let's say, really love Die Hard, when you get a Funko Pop of Bruce Willis in Die Hard, he just kind of looks like a guy in an undershirt. Like he's got a bald head. The Funko Pops don't have any distinguishing features. It's very hard to tell, especially if you take it out of the package and put it on your desk at work. Nobody's going to walk by and say, hey, Bruce Willis from Die Hard. He just kind of looks like a little bald guy, and they have to ask who that is. So if the character isn't really distinguishable, it isn't a whole lot of fun to collect. And this one here, like it's a woman with brown hair and a red dress. I don't think anything about it really screams Selena. And even if you were a Veep fan, if you walked by my desk at work and I had this thing on the desk without the box, I don't think you would know who it was. You'd have to ask me who that is. It could be any number of people. I could tell you that's Melania Trump or, I don't know, one of Charlie's Angels or something. You could believe me. Like it's very hard to tell who that is. So that's why it's at the bottom of the list. But I bought it because I was really digging the show and because it was discounted. Next up, and he's down at the bottom of the list for all the same reasons that Selena is, but this is Jonah Ryan from Veep. He's a little more recognizable because he's got kind of this moppy haircut, and he's got his in his hand he's got a little White House folder, and he's got his like White House ID badge around his neck. So it's, if you are a huge fan of the show, you might put the moppy hair, the folder that says the White House and everything together and say, oh, is that Jonah from Veep? But still, you'd have to be a super fan. It's still not super distinguishable. Plus, Jonah changed his look quite a bit over the course of the show. I think when I bought this for myself, I had only finished watching it the first 2 seasons where he looked like this. But I think by the 3rd or 4th season, he shaved his hair all off and he didn't look anything like this. So again, that's why Jonah's at the bottom. It's just because it's really kind of hard to tell who this character is, but it's a fine little figure. Next up, this is Joanna. This is Jennifer Aniston's character from the movie Office Space. Now, I love the movie Office Space. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you check it out, especially if you're a fan of The Office. I think Office Space, that's beat that to the punch by a number of years, but it's got kind of a similar vibe. If you're somebody that works in an office, it really kind of pokes fun of that whole lifestyle, I guess. Love Office Space. And so when these figures came out, even though they all suffer from that same kind of cardinal sin of like not looking like the character per se, like especially the main character, I don't know if you can see him here, but Peter Gibbons, he's just a guy. Nobody would recognize him on your desk. The other two, they probably would. Bill Lumbergh is just a guy with glasses, but he's holding his mug and just his stance, the glasses, the haircut. Somebody might recognize him from the movie. Same as Milton. So I bought all 3 of the guys, but I didn't buy Joanna. Now, for one, she's just, I don't know, I didn't like her as much in the movie. She wasn't as kind of memorable. Like, she just kind of played the generic girlfriend character. She wasn't particularly memorable. Now, she is wearing her outfit from the restaurant she worked at, and there's a pretty funny, memorable scene where they talk about the amount of flair that she wears on her smock there, and you can see she's got all these little buttons and stuff, her flair, so that's kind of funny. So yeah, when the Office Space figures came out, I bought the other 3. Joanna wasn't worth the $15 to me. I said, you know what, I'm going to put these guys on my desk at work, and the other 3 guys, they all kind of look like office workers. They've got little ties on and all that sort of stuff. But she, she's dressed to work at a restaurant, and she didn't really even fit in with my little office diorama. Because at the time, I had all my characters from the TV show The Office on my desk, and I was mixing the Office Space guys with them. But yeah, she just didn't really fit into that office look, so I passed on her. But I got her on sale later, and I thought, well, sure. It's not like I hate the character or hate the figure or anything, so once it was on sale, I scooped it up. Now, I already realize I talked way too long about those first 3 figures. I've got almost 60 figures to go through here. This video is going to take forever if I talk that long about each figure. So I'm going to try and keep each one to about 30 seconds here. So this next one here is, I don't even know how to pronounce this, Kanagon. This is one of the alien villains from the Ultraman series. Now, I'm not an Ultraman fan. I like the idea of kaijus and giant robots, but I've never watched the TV show Ultraman. When these Ultraman Pops came out, I thought, I'm going to buy one of the Ultramen just because he's kind of cool and kind of iconic, but I don't know any of the monsters. So I passed on both of the monsters that were available. However, when I went to the store a couple of months after these things were released, they had the store I went to, EB Games, had a sale on their Funko Pops where it was 3 for $20 or something like that. And I was already planning on buying one that was like $10, and they're like, well, this is regular price, or you can get 3 for $20. We have a specific stack of them over there that are 3 for $20. And this guy happened to be in the stack, so I thought, well, what the hell, I'll grab him. And next up, after Canagon, these two are kind of interchangeable on my list because both the figures are kind of fun. This is the other alien from Ultraman. This guy is Alien Baltan, but I bought them at the same time. The one Funko Pop I was buying that day was the one I really wanted. They didn't have any others that I really wanted for the 3 for $20, but it just kind of made sense to get the savings and get 3 of them. And these guys I was curious about. Plus, I had just started reading the new Ultraman comic book that Marvel had started publishing, and I thought, what if I become a big Ultraman fan? What if these guys, are important characters to the mythos, and I end up really liking them, and then I can't find them? So I kind of bought them in anticipation of maybe becoming an Ultraman fan. But I can tell you, I have read 4 of the 5 issues of the Ultraman miniseries, and it's okay. It hasn't really impressed me, and it certainly hasn't really turned me on to these characters. Next up, this is one of the figures that is definitely a holdover from 2019. This is Hansel from the movie Zoolander. So this was the character played by Owen Wilson. He was kind of Zoolander's rival male model. And I really liked the movie Zoolander when it came out. I don't know how many friggin' years ago. A long time ago. And if these figures had come out when that movie had come out, I probably would have bought them all up without thinking about it. But it's not like one of my favorite comedies, and many, many years have passed since it came out. So when these Zoolander figures came out, I didn't really feel compelled to buy them all, but I did buy Mugatu, who was the villain played by Will Ferrell. So I bought him ages ago, but I didn't buy Zoolander, the main character, or Hansel. So it wasn't until I found these guys for a discounted price earlier this year that I thought, okay, well, you know what? I do like the movie Zoolander, and I do have the villain. There was only 3 characters in the whole line, and here I can get the other 2 for a discount, so I went for it. So there you go. There's Hansel. Now, next up, I've got my one and only Pop Rides that I bought this year. Now, the Pop Rides are these bigger deluxe boxes that usually feature a character in a car for some reason. So, like James Bond and his Aston Martin, or, I don't know, Batman and his Batmobile. And you'll see the box is empty. Because I'm not, I don't really care about keeping the boxes for these Funko Pops. The first bunch of Funko Pops I bought for the first many years that these things were coming out, I opened them all up and I threw the boxes out. However, I kind of ran out of shelf space for Funko Pops. So what I've been doing, at least until I find a way to display them all without the boxes, I've just been stacking the boxes against the wall. So I keep the boxes now more just as a somewhere to keep them without having to throw them all in a bin. But I'm not a box collector. And the reason why this box is empty is because this is just too big and it doesn't really stack against the wall properly. So that's one of the few I actually open it up and I have it on display. So this is Battle Cat, and it's got He-Man riding it. So this is, a bigger Funko Pop than the usual ones, because He-Man's about the size of a regular figure. If I bring this out, Hansel here, so you'll see he's about that size, but then he's got the whole Battle Cat beneath him. And so yeah, I like He-Man, I like Battle Cat. You might be surprised that this is ranked kind of so low, but it's for a couple of reasons. I really like the design of this figure. He's a lot of fun. Battle Cat's super cute. The He-Man looks really good. I like how he's holding his sword of power out there. But I don't know. For one, I just don't like that the figure doesn't come off of the cat. That annoys me. Even if that if you took him off and his legs were stuck in the riding position so he wouldn't really stand up, that would still be a little annoying. But what if I wanted to display Battle Cat without He-Man on there? I don't play with my toys, but sometimes I think with the mentality of what if I wanted to play with my toys. And the fact is I already have a separate He-Man figure. So if I were to play with these things and I wanted He-Man to talk to Battle Cat, I've got this stupid He-Man stuck to him at all times. It screws it all up. So I wish he was removable. And also, I just find the price of these things really hard to stomach as well. Here in Canada, a Funko Pop nowadays, they used to be about $10, but nowadays they're about $15. But I think this thing here retails for about $40. So I could understand maybe 30 because you're basically getting 2 Funko Pops in the same box. But to bump it up to like $40, you're not getting enough bang for your buck. So those are the reasons why He-Man and Battle Cat are so low on my list, despite the fact that this is a really nice figure. I really like these characters. Next up, I've got Batman. Now I like Batman as much as the next guy. I wouldn't consider myself like a super hardcore Batman fan. I collect the comic books on and off. I haven't read Batman in a while. I go see the movies and all that stuff, but I'm by no means a hardcore Batman collector. But when it comes to Funko Pops, I love Batman Funko Pops. I don't know why. They just make so many different varieties that it's kind of fun to collect all the different weird varieties of Batman. So I kind of have a collection within a collection of my Funko Pops. Because I have, I don't know, about 300 Funko Pops in total. And probably about 50 of them are Batman. I just like getting all the different Batman. So here is Batman. This is based on the Michael Keaton Batman from the movie he did in 89, 90? 89, I think it was. So yeah, this is a cool Batman, and this, I love Batman 89. I saw that in the theaters. It holds up to this day. And it's even got this cool kind of box. It's, all the other Funko Pops, you probably notice, have that same familiar white box. But the Batman ones, they come in this black box, so it really stands out. They have this kind of silvery reflective chrome on them. It looks really cool. Now, the only reason that Batman is kind of low for me is that when Funko Pops first came out, they all had the same body. So it was all kind of the same squatty little position. And I really liked that. And I got a whole bunch of Batmen in different colors. So I have like a yellow Batman and a green Batman and a rainbow striped Batman. And they all look like this. They're basically all identical figures, just painted different. And, then in a way that's kind of, I could see if you think that's less interesting, but I kind of liked the uniformity of it. And a while back, they switched to making the Batman more unique. So they all have different bodies, and they're sculpted different. So one guy might be holding a batarang, another guy's ready to punch. And I just don't like that as much. I liked having all the Batman that were identical on the shelf. That was kind of the fun of the collection. So I've continued to buy Batman even after the change, but I just don't like it as much. So there you go. That's Batman from Tim Burton's 1989. And maybe I'm just lazy, but I kind of lumped my Batman together on this list. Because I thought, well, nothing against Michael Keaton's Batman, but if he sits on this list, then why wouldn't Scrooge Batman sit around the same spot? So, same idea. I think it's kind of fun that you've got Batman with a little Scrooge. He's got like a robe and a nightcap. And he's holding a little candle. So this is kind of like a holiday-themed Batman. And, that's cute and all. But, again, I would rather if he maybe had the cap and stuff, but still had the kind of squatty, classic Funko Pop body. So, yeah, that's where Batman as Ebenezer Scrooge sits on my list. And now we have another Batman. Now, I mentioned I already have a rainbow striped Batman. That one is very crisp in its lines, painted in nice, red, yellow, green, purple. This one's a little different. This is another rainbow Batman. He is made specifically to support the LGBT movement. And you see he's kind of cast in this translucent plastic, and the colors kind of bleed into one another. So it's kind of a soft transition as opposed to kind of these hard lines of paint that I had on my other figure. So this one's neat. It's different. And, I'm happy to support the LGBT community. But, again, it just suffers from the same problem as the other Batman I just showed you, in that it's got a kind of a different body. I wish it was more the classic Batman body. So for that reason, it sits here on my list. Next up is the last Batman that we're going to see for a little while. So this is the Batman from Batman and Robin, I believe. I sometimes I get those movie sequels mixed up. Because it was, but yeah, this is the one that Val Kilmer wore. And even though it's a much worse movie than the Michael Keaton Batman, I must admit the costume is a little more fun to look at. So this costume is kind of a really dark blue with all these weird silver highlights. It's pretty crazy. And you know what? This might even, I honestly can't even recall. Maybe this is the one George Clooney wore, which that movie was even worse. But regardless, it's a fun Batman costume. So that's why I picked it up. But again, I wish they managed to replicate this costume on the more classic Batman mold. But regardless, it's a cool figure. Now, growing up, I loved the movie The Karate Kid, and I still love it. It holds up like great, and I've watched it dozens and dozens of times in my life. However, I always kind of liked Johnny better. So he's the villain, I know. And so when the Funko Pops of The Karate Kid first came out, I only bought Johnny. I didn't buy Daniel, who was the main character, the Karate Kid. And I didn't buy Mr. Miyagi. I think those were all the figures that were available. And then when they made Karate Kid reaction figures, I only bought Johnny. I didn't buy Daniel or Miss Miyagi or Ali or any of the other characters that they might have made. So yeah, I always liked Johnny. And I don't know if you've watched Cobra Kai yet. It's available on Netflix, but that's kind of the sequel to the original Karate Kid series. It's brilliant. I absolutely love it. I binge watched both seasons when it appeared on Netflix earlier this year. And I thought it was so great that Johnny was getting kind of his due as a character. They were kind of showing his backstory a little bit, because if you haven't watched it, it shows both perspectives. You follow the hero Daniel, but you also follow Johnny and realize, yeah, he wasn't maybe such a bad guy. Maybe he was just a little, misled and misunderstood. So anyway, they put out some Funko Pops specifically of Cobra Kai. And so I already had the Johnny that said Karate Kid on the box, and I passed on the younger Daniel that said Karate Kid. But now this set that says Cobra Kai on the box, and again they remade Daniel and Johnny, except now as their older selves. And this time around, I thought, you know what? I'm not going to pass on Daniel this time. I still like Johnny better, but I decided to take a chance and get this because I was really enjoying the show. And so now it's nice to finally have a Daniel to pair up against my Johnny. So there you go. Daniel LaRusso with the Karate Kid. Next up, I have got Undersea Gal from Nightmare Before Christmas. So I used to collect Nightmare Before Christmas stuff, and I stopped collecting it years ago. However, even though I have some old action figures and stuff from Nightmare Before Christmas, there was a few characters that they never got action figures that I always would have liked. And so when I see these Funko Pops, they're kind of easy and affordable. I wouldn't necessarily buy a Nightmare Before Christmas figure from, say, I don't know what company makes the figures now. I think it's NECA, maybe. But if I were to buy this girl made by NECA, she just really wouldn't fit in my collection anywhere because I don't have my old Nightmare Before Christmas figures on display. They're boxed up. So I wouldn't know what to do with it. But to get her in a Funko Pop, then I can just stick her over with my Funko Pop collection, and I don't have to worry about her being kind of an oddball. So, it's been kind of cool getting some of the weird little creatures as Funko Pops. So I've got, like, the evil clown, and I've got the little devil guy, I don't know, a few others. And, so it was cool to finally get Undersea Gal, because I've never had a figure of her. I've always loved kind of the creature from the Black Lagoon and sea creature type people. So, this is a pretty cool figure. This is the one that I was actually buying that was 3 for $20, so I ended up buying those Ultraman aliens to kind of pair with her. But she's pretty cool. Speaking of those Ultraman figures, my next slot goes to Ultraman. Like I said, Ultraman is this kind of classic character from Japanese TV. He's been around since, I want to say, the 70s, maybe even earlier, but I've never got into him. But when I saw these figures, I thought, you know what, it'd be kind of cool to have an Ultraman. Like I said, Marvel had already announced they were going to start doing an Ultraman comic book, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to read the comic book. Chances are I might want an action figure of him. So I went out and got this. Now, it is a cool figure. Now, the reason it's kind of low on my list here is, for one, the series didn't really grab me the way I was kind of hoping it would. It's okay, but it's not great. And I don't know the difference in my Ultraman, but you'll see on the back of the package here, there's Ultraman, there's Father of Ultra, there's Ultraman Ace, and there's Ultraman Jack. They all look relatively the same. But, from my understanding, Ultraman Jack is kind of a sidekick to the main Ultraman. And when you look at the figures on the back of the package here, they look virtually identical. I think Ultraman Jack has a couple of extra stripes on his gloves and his boots, and that's the only real distinguishable difference that I see. So when I wanted to get Ultraman, I wanted to get Ultraman. But they didn't have Ultraman at the store, but they had Ultraman Jack. So that's what I got. However, even though he looks pretty much exactly like Ultraman, and I don't even really know the difference, just knowing that this isn't the main Ultraman, it does kind of diminish him a little bit. It would be like if you wanted a Godzilla figure, but all they had in the store was Son of Godzilla. Sure, they might look similar, but it's not really Godzilla, and so knowing that this Ultraman Jack And, you know, I'm not a huge fan of the property. It's a fun little figure. I like kind of that nice, almost reflective silver paint they use on him. But, yeah, there you go, Ultraman Jack. Next up is John Jones, who is the UFC fighter. Now, I'm a big UFC fan. I've gone to see it live a few times. And I'm a big fan of John Jones. He's kind of a divisive character because he's gotten into some legal troubles and stuff in the past. But he's a great fighter to watch. So I'm a fan of his. But the reason why this is ranking kind of low on the list is because it suffers from the same problem as like Selena from Veep. It's kind of hard to tell who this is. And that's not necessarily Funko's fault. It's just John Jones maybe doesn't have that any real distinguishing features. So like maybe if he had a mohawk and a scar or something, you could be like, okay, I can make a figure of John Jones and it's going to be clearly recognizable as John Jones. But yeah. This guy, he's got the belt over his shoulder, which should be a good indicator that it's John Jones. But as I said when I first bought this figure, and I showed it to you in one of my videos, you know, this could have very easily been like Tyrone Woodley, who's another UFC champion who also has a little beard and short hair and has a belt and black shorts. So for that reason, if I took him out of the box, you wouldn't really be able to be sure which champ he was from the UFC. He ranks kind of low, but still, I like John Jones, and I hope UFC makes some more of these UFC characters. Next up is Zoolander. I told you before about how I bought him and Hansel. These are holdovers from the previous year. I'd only bought Mugatu before. But once I got these things, you know, Zoolander was the real thing I loved about that movie. You know, Owen Wilson was fine, but Ben Stiller as Zoolander was hilarious. And so obviously he's going to rank a little higher on my list. I think this is a fun figure. So there you go, Zoolander. Next up, I've got James Bond. This is my newest Funko Pop. I actually just bought this last week. And if you've watched my past videos, I've told you that anything I buy in December, I usually set aside for myself and I give it to myself for Christmas. So really, I shouldn't even have this figure yet. I shouldn't be showing it to you. I shouldn't be looking at it because it's a Christmas present. However, when I decided to put this list together, this is probably the only Funko Pop I will get before the end of the year, so I thought, well, I might as well throw him in here too, to complete the whole list. So, I like James Bond. I buy most of the James Bond Funko Pops that they make. This one, I might have passed on. Like, I don't need a Roger Moore figure from every single Roger Moore movie that he was in. He's not a Bond that I particularly love. Plus, Bond doesn't have that many outfits. He usually wears a tux or a suit or something along those lines. However, this is from the movie Moonraker, where they go to outer space. So he's got this kind of outer space jumpsuit. And so that seemed kind of like a no-brainer to pick up. It's pretty cool. The only reason that it is so low on the list is because I already have 6 other James Bond figures, I think, including another one of him. So, of Roger Moore. So, there you go. That's Moonraker, James Bond. So now we're going to get into some Office-like characters. We're not quite into The Office yet. There are some of those characters on the list. But we're going to start with Peggy Olson from Mad Men. Now, I love Mad Men. That was a show about ad executives in the 60s. If you've never watched it, I highly recommend it. And so when they put this this set of figures out, I bought them all up. And partly because, not only was I a fan of the show, and these figures do suffer somewhat from not being super distinguishable. Like it's possible, if I took this out of the box, if you've never watched Mad Men, obviously you wouldn't know who this character was. But if you've seen Mad Men, I think you definitely know who this was. This figure is based on kind of her iconic kind of closing scene when she's walking out of the building with her box of belongings. She's got a cigarette in her mouth and her sunglasses on. So it's a pretty distinct look for Peggy. But I might not have bought the Mad Men figures because they are kind of just plain clothes people and not super interesting. But at the time, I had the diorama on my work desk that had all my characters from the show The Office and from the movie Office Space. And so when these Mad Men figures came out, I think it was very late 2019. I got these guys right around the end of the year last year and the start of this year. I thought, yeah, these guys will fit in great with the other office workers on my desk. So there you go. That's Peggy Olson, and it's a pretty cool figure. Next up is a figure from the actual The Office show. So this here is Meredith Palmer. So this one's pretty funny. I haven't had this all that long. I did talk about it in a recent video. Basically, this is her outfit that she wore on Casual Day, where she's wearing this kind of short little dress, and they comment to her that she should pull her dress down because she doesn't have any underwear on and people can see up the bottom of her skirt. So she tugs it down, and then one of her breasts pops out. And on the show, they pixelate it. So in this figure, it's kind of hard to tell, but basically she has an exposed breast, but it's all been pixelated. There's a bunch of little squares. So that's pretty funny that they were able to integrate that joke into this figure. However, I prefer these Office figures to not be so scene specific. Like, they keep making figurines of Jim and Dwight in pretty much every outfit they ever wore. Oftentimes they wear these outfits for like maybe the opening credit scene, which lasts like all of a minute, and I don't really need a figure of all these unique scenes. I'd be okay with it maybe if they made, a kind of a generic version of every character, and then for the super fans, if they want to go out and buy, Dwight as the Scranton Strangler, or or Meredith with her boob out from this scene, then sure, go ahead and make them, and maybe people will buy them. Whereas I would prefer, if I'm going to put a little diorama of The Office, even though this is funny, and maybe this would sell better than a standard Meredith, I would rather have just Meredith in a regular blouse or dress or whatever, just so she could be in my display. This is so scene specific that it's not a great representation if this ends up being my only Meredith figure, and chances are it will. I don't see them revisiting her a whole lot in the future. So I'm glad to get Meredith, but I wish it was a little more general. Now, perhaps this was lazy of me, but I did lump my Office characters together just because I kind of like them all the same. And so this is Jan. This was Michael's one-time boss and then later girlfriend. She was really funny in the show. And this scene here, now this is a pretty specific scene. You see she's holding a glass of wine and a candle. This is from the episode where Michael and Jan have Jim and Pam over for a dinner date, and she's trying to sell them candles, and she's getting drunk on wine. She's wearing this outfit. She's got her hair styled this way. She didn't always have her hair that way. So this is pretty specific to that scene. However, I think it's general enough. Like, it's not something as crazy as having like your boob out like Meredith has. So this is fine. If I was to make an Office display and this was the only Jan I had, I think it's a fine figure. I don't think they could really do any better with Jan. So that's why she ranks a little bit higher. And yeah, it's a pretty cool figure. Next up, we've got Kelly. So this is Kelly Kapowski from The Office. She is wearing her casual day outfit as well. So this outfit comes from the same episode as the Meredith figure. So it's not bad, but again, it's still a little specific. I think I would prefer Kelly in something a little more Office appropriate, so that if I did just have, I don't have a display at work anymore, obviously, because I haven't been into my building for almost a year now, so now I work from home and I don't really have a diorama set up anymore. But if I eventually do get back into the office and I do set this diorama back up again, I would prefer Kelly just in, more an outfit that she would more likely wear to the office. Like, this is like jean overalls and a hat. It very much doesn't look like something you would wear to the office, and that was kind of the joke, because it was casual day. So I really like this character, and I'm happy that we finally got a figure of her. There's still a couple of characters like Creed and stuff that we haven't even got figures of yet. So I'm happy to fill in the blanks of any of the characters I don't have. But like I said, I wish they were a little more general in appearance. Lastly, from The Office, we've got Stanley Hudson. So this was another character who we desperately needed a figure of. He's an important part of the cast. Now you'll notice this one here. It's got the little sticker to say EB exclusive, and it's got a Canadian flag. So, or a maple leaf anyway. So as far as I know, this figure was exclusive to Canada, and I'm glad it was, because the only other Stanley that they put out, which came out around the same time as this one, was what they called Vacation Stanley or Holiday Stanley. And it was very scene specific. He was wearing like a white suit with a pink shirt, and he had a little fedora on, and that was from the episode when they went down to Florida. And it's definitely not what Stanley would normally wear in the office. And like I said, I want something a little more general. This is perfect because it features Stanley in a... I probably should have been doing this all along, showing you this picture here. But this is Stanley in a suit. Now, what makes this one kind of scene specific is the pretzel. There is one scene in one episode of The Office where it's pretzel day, and they get all excited and they have to line up for their pretzels. So this one, Stanley is very prominently holding a pretzel in front of him. So it's probably referred to, as Pretzel Stanley. And I'd much prefer having Pretzel Stanley than Vacation Stanley. And I don't think they could make any other Stanley that I would feel I would need. This one is general enough for me. So there you go. Next up, we've got another Mad Men figure. So this is Joan Holloway. So she was kind of the redheaded bombshell secretary that worked in the office. And Joan, for obvious reasons, Joan was one of my favorite characters. I love Joan. Christina Hendricks played her, and she was brilliant, and she was beautiful. So yeah, I really love this character. As far as Funko Pops go, she's probably a little more generic looking than Peggy Olson. So if I put the two of them on my desk, somebody would be more likely to recognize Peggy. And, you know, even though Peggy was great as a character, and, you know, what's her name? Elizabeth Moss, that plays her, is also brilliant in the show. You know, I just was always kind of, I was more of a Joan guy. So even though, you know, the figure is maybe a little generic looking, I think it does encompass Joan pretty well. Like, just the way she's got kind of like this powerful stance with one leg on her hip and her leg forward there. She's got the red hair. I think it's pretty good, Joan. But truthfully, my love of the character probably is blinding me a little bit, and that's why this figure sits probably a little bit higher on the list than it should. Next up, we've got another James Bond. So this is Bond from the new movie, No Time to Die, which isn't out yet, and I still don't even know if we know when it will come out. Anyway, so yeah, these figures were supposed to come out to coincide with the release of the movie in October, but yeah, no such luck. Anyway, I already have a Daniel Craig Bond. It's the one where he's holding the machine gun up from Quantum of Solace. I like that one quite a bit, and for that reason, I don't feel I need a Daniel Craig Bond from, say, Casino Royale or from Skyfall. Even though both of those movies were better than Quantum of Solace, I thought, as far as Daniel Craig Bonds go, the Quantum of Solace one had the best pose. So that's the one I went with. I didn't really think I need another one, but this one here, I kind of like that it's the first Bond figure I have where he's not in a tuxedo. Well, I do have that one in the space jumpsuit now, but like I said, I just got that the other day. This one I bought back in October. So at the time, all my other Bond figures were all wearing tuxedos. So I kind of like this one as a little more casual in this like knit sweater. And yeah, he looks kind of cool. I like his stance, kind of marching towards you with his gun in hand. And part of it was just excitement for the movie. You know, I'm really excited to see this movie, and the fact that it got pushed back again kind of, I don't know, I think I kind of bought this figure just because I wanted a little piece of that movie. And speaking of No Time to Die, next up is Safin. So this is the villain of the movie. At least I think so. So this dude, he's got a very, you know, unique Bond villain look. He's got that kind of creepy white porcelain mask, which is cracked, and you can see kind of a scarred face beneath. And he's got this big winter parka on. So yeah, I don't know. He's got a unique look, and he's a character I don't have, which is why he ranks higher than Bond himself. But it was a little tough to rank this guy because I don't know anything about him. He could end up being in the scene in the movie for all of 5 minutes and then he dies. Or, you know, I've seen him in the trailer wearing this snowsuit, but I doubt the whole movie takes place in the Arctic or something because Bond movies are known for bouncing all over the globe. So maybe they do fight in the snow at one point, but I wouldn't be surprised if they also fight, you know, a dozen other places. In which case, I probably won't be super stoked that my Safin figure is stuck in a snowsuit. It's probably a little too scene specific. But maybe not. Maybe he wears it all the time. I don't know. But either way, I think he's kind of a cool looking character. So that's why he's kind of middle of the pack here for me. So next up, this is again me being kind of lazy. I really like the Umbrella Academy. I liked the comic book series. And I was nervous about the TV show. Would it be as good? And it's one of those things where in a way it's better. Like I really like the comic book a lot. And you know, part of that is the art and stuff like that, and you really can't replicate the art in a show. So, you know, I don't. It's very hard for me to say the show is better than the comic book, but in a lot of ways it was because it did make me relate to the characters a lot more than I did on the written page. So I've got all 7 members of the Umbrella Academy here in a row, and I just kind of rank them in order that I like them. So I'm going to start with number 5. So this is the member of the Umbrella Academy that's kind of stuck in a child's body. The figure represents that pretty well. He's wearing his little like schoolboy outfit, but yet he looks kind of angry, which number 5 always is. He's got his little cup of coffee, and yeah, it's a pretty cool little figure. So there you go, number 5. And whatever, I'll just move through all these really quick. Then we got Diego. So this character was referred to as the Kraken in the comic books, although they didn't really use the superhero names so much in the show. They might have alluded to them once or twice, but they don't really use them. So that's Diego. So yeah, this is a cool figure. The only thing is, I liked him a lot in the show, and I don't know if this figure really looks like him. Like, when I see this, I don't see the actor that played him. So, like, it's a decent figure, but yeah, I don't know if the likeness is spot on. Next up, we've got Allison. So she plays the Rumor, and yeah, I really like this figure. She's probably one of the characters that... She'd probably be my least favorite character from the comic book. They changed her look quite a bit. She was like a white girl with short black hair. She had like more of a superhero-y suit on. So here they've got, the actress. She's black. She's got this curly blonde hair. It's kind of a cool look. And she was just a lot more interesting in the show. And yeah, I think this figure captures her quite nicely. Next up, we've got Vanya, as played by Elliot Page, who is from here, from Halifax, where I live. So that's pretty cool. I've been following Elliot's career all along, and was pretty stoked when they got cast in the Umbrella Academy. And yeah, I really liked the Vanya character and how they portrayed them. And yeah, this is a cool figure. I like the white eyes. It's really kind of creepy and separates Vanya from her siblings. So yeah, cool figure. Next up, we've got Ben, who played the Horror. Now, this guy, I feel he had a lot more to do in the show than in the comic book. It's been a while since I've read the comic books, but I feel he was completely absent, at least from the first series. And I don't remember him doing a whole lot in the second series, but they, he speaks to one of his brothers, Seance. And in the show, he was just featured a lot more. And I really like that we get to know the character a little bit more. But also, this Funko Pop has these translucent blue tentacles, and he's just kind of pretty cool. He looks a little different because he's got that ghostly blue skin, which he didn't always look like in the show. They could have very easily went with his normal skin tone and made him look normal. I'm kind of glad they went with this because it just makes him look a little more interesting. Next up, we've got Klaus. So his superhero name is Seance in the comic books because he can speak to the dead. But this was a guy, I liked Seance in the comic book, but man, this actor, I can't remember what his name is. I first encountered him during the show Misfits, which was kind of like a British kind of superhero show. Anyway, I really liked him in that, but man, he kills it as Klaus in the Umbrella Academy. He just brings a lot of personality, and yeah, he's just really great. This figure here with the feather boa and everything, he's just a lot of fun. So there you go, there's Klaus. And lastly, yeah, from a figure perspective, Luther may not be the most interesting. Like, I would say Ben and Klaus are probably more interesting figures. This guy's just kind of standing there stoically in a big green overcoat. But he was my favorite character from the comic, and I really like him in the show as well. The actor that plays him does a great job. He's a lot smaller in the show, because in the comic book he has a gorilla body, and it's very prominent. It's this little guy's head on this big, huge, hulking gorilla body. In the show, they kind of play that up as a secret. He just wears this big overcoat that hides a big, hairy body. It's not really a gorilla body, per se. So, I think the character would be a lot more fun if he had a big gorilla body, but I know that would be a lot more expensive and harder to pull off and everything. So, I thought they did a pretty good job in the show, and I think this figure represents him pretty well. Next up, we've got Mosquitor from the Masters of the Universe line. Now, I really like the Masters of the Universe Funko Pops. I've been trying to collect as many of them as I can. The problem is they make a lot of exclusives to different stores and different conventions, so it's been pretty much impossible for me to collect the whole set, which is frustrating. But yeah, as long as they keep releasing these general releases, I'll probably keep buying them. Mosquitor is part of this kind of, I guess we'd call it maybe wave 3 of the Masters of the Universe figures. And all the figures were a lot of fun. Mosquitor is probably my least favorite because of his unique head. It just doesn't really translate super well into a Funko Pop. It's just kind of oddly shaped. It doesn't really look mosquito-like. I don't know what they could have done different or better, but I'm glad we got this character, but he just doesn't really work as a Funko Pop. So, cool character, not a bad design, but, Next up is another Masters of the Universe figure. This is the Sorceress. Now, this is actually a great figure. So, I don't have anything to complain about for this one. We are getting a little high up there in the list, so all these ones here, we're getting into some of my favorites now. So yeah, this one's really cool. It's a nice bright design, looks great. So there you go, Sorceress. Next up, another Masters of the Universe figure. This is Webstore. Now he's kind of like the spider-like villain who's got a little grappling hook and multiple eyes on his head. So this guy here, I don't know, he's really cool. He's I don't know, he's just a little cooler looking than the Sorceress. They were pretty much hand in hand. It was hard for me to put one over the other. But yeah, he's a fun, monstrous character, bright colors, a lot of fun. So there you go. Now, 2020 is the first year that I bought any of the Ad Icons figures, which is, Funko Pops are divided into all these little subsets. There's comics, there's movies, there's TV, and then there's Ad Icons. And I got Captain Crunch. Now, Captain Crunch is he's kind of a fun character. He's this old man captain. But the thing is, I just love Captain Crunch, like the cereal. I still eat it regularly to this day. It was always like my favorite cereal as a kid. Now, I actually prefer Toucan Sam as a mascot, and I like Fruit Loops, but if I could only eat one sugary cereal for the rest of my life, it would be Captain Crunch. And so I thought it was just kind of fun to get a figure of the captain. There's not much more to say about him other than, pretty cool. Captain Crunch, I like him, and he's unique. He's definitely a little different from the average stuff you see in my collection. Next up, I've got Dracula. Now, this guy here was an exclusive to Shoppers Drug Mart here in Canada. I don't know if you could get him anywhere else. But, my buddy Brian picked this up for me, and I'm glad he did, because I'm a big fan of the Universal Monsters. And when Funko Pop first started coming out, Universal Monsters was a property they tackled really early on. And I saw all of the Universal Monsters at the time, but I wasn't really convinced. I wasn't on board with the Funko Pop train just yet. I didn't know if they were just going to be a flash in the pan or whatever. So I bought the Wolfman, who's my absolute favorite, but I passed on the Creature from the Black Lagoon, Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy. But now that I've become such a big Funko Pop collector, I wish I had gone back and, I wish I had bought those when I had the chance, because some of them have gone up in value and they're harder to get. And anyway, so if they release new versions of all those characters, that would be great, because then I'd have another shot at getting the Creature, the Mummy. And Dracula is an important character. He's kind of, the leader of the Universal Monsters is how I see him. So yeah, I think this is superior to the original release. I don't know if you can see him on the back of the package there, but he had this kind of bluish skin, and his mouth was open. He was kind of going, But this is more like, Count Dracula before he turns into a vampire, before he reveals himself. So yeah, I kind of like it. He looks classy, holding his little candlestick there, and yeah, Dracula, cool. Now, I already showed you the Karate Kid, Daniel LaRusso, and now here is his counterpart, Johnny Lawrence, in the Cobra Kai box. So even though I already had a different Johnny Lawrence, a younger Johnny Lawrence in my collection, I still had to put this guy above Daniel LaRusso. I just love Johnny Lawrence. And this figure is very similar to the previous release that I had. Probably the main difference is the hair. Older Johnny has kind of a more messy haircut, whereas the other guy was very clean cut, very kind of combed over to the side. So that's the main difference. This guy's hair is a little more dirty blonde. But yeah, he's just a fun character. I'm happy to get him. Again, next up, we've got a G.I. Joe. This is Shipwreck. Now, Shipwreck has got a great look. He's got this kind of, sailor look. He looks like he could be like a village person. I've always loved Shipwreck. I'm a huge G.I. Joe fan. My only fear with this figure is kind of what it represents for G.I. Joe. So as I mentioned with Masters of the Universe, I have all kinds of Masters of the Universe, like actual Masters of the Universe figures, the classics figures. And now they have a new line called Origins, which I'm planning to collect, even though I haven't found any yet. And then there's a new line launching next year. I forget what it's called, but chances I'm going to buy that. And then I'm buying the Funko Pops. So you have to draw the line somewhere, because they keep making different types of Masters of the Universe. They're making little mini figures that you can find at Walmart now. There's also the Mega Bloks versions of them. There's reaction figures of them, and I just can't buy every version of every character. And when it comes to G.I. Joe has hundreds of characters in the line, and I already have hundreds of G.I. Joes. Like, I have hundreds of vintage G.I. Joes, and now I have hundreds of modern G.I. Joes, and now they're making new 6-inch G.I. Joes, and I collect those now, and that's just getting started. I really can't afford to buy every friggin' G.I. Joe again in this format. So I did have some G.I. Joe Funko Pops from a couple years ago. They released the main characters, like Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, Cobra Commander, Destro. I had those, and I was completely fine with them being the only releases we got, and I had them and they're set aside. And now here we are years later, and they're starting to make more G.I. Joes. So I have Shipwreck. I like them. It looks great. It's an awesome figure. I don't know if I can buy too many more of these because I just can't go down that road. So it scares me. So this one's kind of a loaded figure. But on its own, I think it looks great. I really like it. Now we've got another Mad Men figure. So I've already showed you the two women. Now I've got Roger Sterling, one of the guys. So these guys I think are great because not only are they just guys in suits, so they looked really good in my little office diorama, but I just love these guys were from the 60s. If you watch the show, they just drink in the office, drink and smoke all the time. Roger was such a great character, and this figure he's holding his like liquor glass, and it's just really cool. I like it a lot. He's just chilling. So there you go. There's Roger from Mad Men. Next up, we've got Cyclone from Masters of the Universe. So this is a character that, he's one of my least favorite Masters of the Universe characters, probably. I don't think he looks great. Like, the vintage figure is kind of dorky. And even when they tried to make him a little cooler in, like, the Classics line, he's still kind of dorky. But his weird design works really well for a Funko Pop. I actually think this is probably the best Cyclone has ever looked. So yeah, he captures all the look of the original. But there's something about just the kind of the cuteness of a Funko Pop where it works for the first time, I think. So yeah, that's why a character that I don't really even like all that much ranks so highly on the list, just because he gets the award for like most improved, I guess you could say. So there you go, Cyclone. Next up is my one and only 2-pack of the year. So this is Happy Gilmore and Bob Barker. So this is from a very kind of memorable scene from the movie Happy Gilmore, where it's like a celebrity golf tournament, and Happy Gilmore gets in a fight with Bob Barker, who ends up like punching him in the face and saying the price is wrong, bitch, which was hilarious at the time. But nowadays, people probably don't even know who Bob Barker is, but he was the host of The Price is Right for many, many years before Drew Carey came along. And I absolutely loved Happy Gilmore when it first came out. I was young. I watched it a bunch over and over again. Super funny. I loved that scene. If these figures had come out when Happy Gilmore had first come out, I would have wanted all of the characters. I thought it was great. But this is one of those things where I feel I've outgrown it a little bit. The movie is not as funny to me, partly because Adam Sandler's legacy. He used to do such funny stuff, and now he's made so many bad movies that even his good ones seem worse, just retroactively. And so when these figures came out, I considered getting Happy Gilmore. I wasn't sure if I was going to, but then my wife actually got me this for Valentine's Day, along with some other things. But so for that reason alone, well, maybe not alone, but for that reason, this definitely bumps it up. This one's got some sentimental value to me. It's sweet that my wife thought of me and bought me this. I do like it, and I like these characters. It's just maybe not something I would have been as excited about, these days that I would have bought on my own. But as a gift, I very much appreciate it, and it is kind of fun to have this, famous scene kind of captured in plastic. All right, we're really running long here. I think I'm up over the hour point now. So yeah, let's speed things up. Next up, I have got Gladiator Maximus, as played by Russell Crowe. Now, again, this is one of those things where it's not very timely. I loved Gladiator when it first came out. I would have loved to have gotten action figures of Gladiator back then, which was like, the year 2000 or something. So here we are, 20 years later, finally getting an action figure of sorts from Gladiator, and I love it. I think it's, the perfect pose where he's holding out his sword. Are you not entertained? All that sort of stuff. Looks great. There was an alternate version that had his helmet. I don't know. I think I might have preferred the helmeted version. It's hard to say. I do like this one too. But anyway, it's Gladiator. I'm just stoked to finally have a Gladiator figure because I've wanted one forever. Next up, another Masters of the Universe figure. This is Tongue Lasher, one of the Snake Men. And kind of like Cyclone, I think this might be the best that Tongue Lasher has ever looked. He was always kind of a weird character because, like I said, he's a snake man. He's got like the forked tongue. He's got the teeth. He looks like a snake. But he always looked kind of more like a salamander or something, or a frog. and it just never really made a whole lot of sense. This is the first time that he looks snaky, and he oddly enough looks more menacing as a Funko Pop than he ever did as an action figure. So I like it a lot. The colors are great. He's just a fun figure. So there you go, tongue lashing. Here's another figure that we're getting kind of way too late, but this is Tyler Durden from Fight Club. Now this movie also came out in, I want to say, 99. So I've been waiting over 20 years for a figure. Now, even though I loved Fight Club, like absolutely loved it, it's not a movie that I necessarily wanted action figures of. Like Gladiator, it was a movie that, begged for action figures. I would have loved to have had a Coliseum playset and had some tigers and other gladiators. Like that would have been a lot of fun. Fight Club wouldn't necessarily have been a lot of fun for action figures. Like they are just guys that beat up each other in the streets type of thing. But Tyler Durden was very charismatic character. He had some fun designs. They've captured that here with this figure. He's got his like pink lens sunglasses. He's holding his soap. He's got his like kind of maroon leather jacket. They made a figure of the Ed Norton figure character as well, and I didn't buy that one, partly because again it didn't really look like anybody if you took it outside the packaging. But I would buy another Tyler Durden. Like if they made him with his shaved head and his feather boa, I would totally buy another one. So yeah, Tyler Durden, great character. Happy to have him represented in my collection. Next up is the other G.I. Joe figure I got this year. So this is Zartan. So again, he's got a very unique look. He's one of the kind of most iconic, most important G.I. Joe characters. So yeah, when him and Shipwreck came out, I bought them both. However, they were followed by Beachhead, and that's kind of where I drew the line. I said, okay, I'm not going to buy Beachhead. Doesn't mean I'm not going to buy any more G.I. Joe Pops, but that was me saying I'm not going to buy them all because I'm worried they're going to make them all. But Zartan I'm happy to get because, yeah, he's really cool. He looks great in this format. And there you go. Next, we've got another Batman. So this is Pink Batman. And this one here, it was designed to support breast cancer or support the fighting of breast cancer. So yeah, he's all pink, a couple of different shades, some white highlights. So you might think, well, why is this Batman better than those other 4 or 5 Batmans you showed us earlier? And it's because this is based on that classic Funko Pop Batman pose. He's got that little squatty pose. So this one matches up with all the other ones that I have on display out on my shelf out there. And this is where it kind of pains me because now I've gotten so used to saving these things in the boxes. But I really kind of want to take this guy out of the box and put him on the shelf with all of the other classic style Batman that I have. So yeah, this guy's really cool. I just love that. I'm happy that we can still get the occasional classic squatty Batman in a different color. I was kind of worried they were going to stop doing that completely. So yeah, this gave me some hope that there's more to come. Next up, another Masters of the Universe figure. This is He-Man's alter ego, Prince Adam. So this is another character that I actually think works better in Funko Pop than he ever worked in action figures. Prince Adam was always kind of, I don't know, fruity looking before. It just never really worked. You got this big muscly guy wearing this like pink tunic and mauve pants, and yet he's supposed to be kind of like undercover. Nobody knows Prince Adam is He-Man, even though they have the same head. He doesn't even have glasses on like Superman. It just never worked. But yeah, so even though that design looked silly in the cartoons and in the old toys, I think it looks good on a Funko Pop. These kind of bright colors, it really kind of works. So yeah, I really kind of dig this Prince Adam. He's kind of fun. Here's another ad icon, and this is not only is the character kind of cool, but this is another product that I endorse. This is Cheetos, and you get Chester Cheetah. So I love Cheetos. I'm probably gonna have some Cheetos when I finish making this video. But yeah, if I had one gripe about this figure is that he's kind of in that famous Chester Cheetah pose where he's got like one leg crossed over, where if I wanted to take him out of the box and display him, I'd rather he had kind of a little more general pose. I'd be a little worried he'd topple over. He probably has a display base in there, but regardless, it's just kind of fun to get a character like this because I don't have a whole lot of advertising. Well, ad icons, I'll call them. That's what they call them. So I don't have many ad icons in my collection. It's usually things like G.I. Joe's, Transformers, He-Man. So to get Chester the Cheetah, it's kind of different. And yeah, I like him a lot. So there you go. Now, as much as I love my Gladiator figure, I think I love my Commodus figure even more. So this was the kind of evil emperor as played by Joaquin Phoenix. He's got his little thumbs down pose here. I know it's kind of hard to see. But yeah, this is just a great looking figure. A lot of nice design has gone into his armor. And yeah, just really cool. Next up is the last of my Mad Men figures. So this is Don Draper, who was the star of the show. And for the same reason that I like Roger Sterling, except even more, this guy's got his drink of alcohol, and then he also has a cigarette hanging off of his lip. It's just very representative of how the show portrays working in an office in the 60s. Just very chill, very very manly. So yeah, it's a fun figure. And even though he's kind of generic looking, I see Don Draper when I look at him. So there you go, pretty cool. Next up is the last of my Masters of the Universe figures. This is Slime Pit He-Man. So, I don't know, he's made out of translucent green plastic. He looks really cool. Maybe one of the reasons why I like this one so much is that I wanted to get the Slime Pit He-Man from the Masters of the Universe Classics line, but it was a convention exclusive. It was too expensive. I didn't get it. I probably never will at this point. So to have a chance to get this figure as a Funko Pop was kind of fun to have another stab at him. And yeah, just the fact that he's translucent with those red eyes, it's kind of just it's a fun design for this guy. So there you go. Slime Pit He-Man. Next up is the lead singer of Weezer, Rivers Cuomo. Now, I'm a huge Weezer fan. I have been since day one. I love Rivers. And I think this figure does a really good job of capturing him in what you would kind of see in your mind's eye for Rivers Cuomo. Like, he's got like a sweater on. So like the sweater song, the way the box is designed, it kind of evokes the like the Buddy Holly video. But it's not really specific to any one thing, I don't think. It's kind of just a nice blend. And I think it looks like Rivers with the haircut. I love all the detailing on the guitar. He's got the lightning strap. Yeah, I'd like to get more of these kind of rock icons, because when it comes to action figures, I don't need like a lifelike 6-inch version of Rivers Cuomo in my collection. I always feel that would be kind of weird, but having him as a little Funko Pop, I think is fun. It allows me to show my love of Weezer in a collectible way, and so yeah, more of this kind of stuff. And we're almost done. We just cracked into my top 5 here. So coming in at number 5 is another ad icon. This is Kool-Aid Man. Now, Kool-Aid Man, I don't know. What can I say? I don't really drink Kool-Aid. I haven't drank Kool-Aid since I was a kid. So I don't like this guy so much because of the product, but just because of, I don't know, childhood nostalgia. I loved this guy breaking through walls and saying, oh yeah, when he came through. He's fun. And as far as a Funko Pop design goes, like, he doesn't really look like a Funko Pop. Funko Pops are kind of distinct by having these big heads and little bodies. Obviously, that wouldn't really work for Kool-Aid Man. So this is basically just a Kool-Aid Man figure. And I like that. I'm happy to have a Kool-Aid Man figure in my collection. He's smiling. He looks happy. He looks like a lot of fun. I don't think they really did anything to him to make him too cartoony. Like, a lot of these figures, they don't have mouths and stuff. But Kool-Aid Man, he's got a mouth and everything. So yeah, he doesn't really look like a Funko Pop. He's just a really cool Kool-Aid Man figure. And I love it. Coming in at number 4, we've got Nancy from The Craft. Now, The Craft, came out in 1996, I believe. I saw that when I was in high school, and I absolutely loved Fariza Balk's character, Nancy. Yeah, I liked her a lot. Anyway, this is one of those things where I don't necessarily need action figures from The Craft, because, it's not really an action-oriented movie. It would almost seem a little strange to have an action figure of Nancy and the other witches. But as a Funko Pop, again, I kind of like with Rivers Cuomo, I like that I have a collectible to kind of show my love and affection for any particular movie or property or band, but it's just kind of a little $10, $15 one-off. And yeah, I think this is great. I think it looks like Nancy. It's got, the black makeup around the eyes, the kind of messed up hair, the extra chains around her neck, little crucifixes and stuff. It looks great, and this is just a character that I've wanted, in some form, I guess, for years. And so here we are all these years later, and I finally have a Nancy in my collection. So yeah, that's why she ranks at number 4. Coming in at number 3 is Glowworm. Now, I just recently got this guy. I had a glowworm when I was a kid, when these things first came out in the 80s. They were plush animals that had a flashlight in them, so when you hugged them, their hard plastic faces lit up. And I loved my glowworm. Yeah, he was just the cutest thing. And, you know, I no longer have my glowworm, which is kind of a bummer. And yeah, so when this thing came out, it was just like, it's really nice to be able to go back and get a glowworm and have him in my collection. Sure, he's not plush and I can't take him to bed and squeeze him and stuff, which would probably freak my wife out anyway. But yeah, having this glowworm in my collection, like, it looks a lot like the vintage glowworm as far as the face and stuff goes. So yeah, I don't know. When I see him, it just makes me feel warm inside. So yeah, I love this glowworm. Now, who better to follow Glowworm than Patrick Bateman, the American Psycho? So this is from the movie American Psycho. Christian Bale played Patrick Bateman. This movie came out, I don't know, again, around that same era of 2000 or so. And yeah, I love that movie. I've seen it a bunch of times. It's dark. It's funny. Yeah, it's great. And Patrick Bateman Christian Bale kills it and there, no pun intended, kills it. But he does a great job playing Patrick Bateman. And this figure here, he's got his rubber see-through raincoat on over his suit. He's holding his axe. The figure isn't actually bloody, but the box is. So you see this blood splash, and it kind of looks like there's blood on the figure. There is not. But there was a bloody variant of this figure available. I don't know which one I prefer. I'm totally happy with the clean-cut one. This obviously takes place just before the attack. But yeah, it's a memorable scene. That look on his face, just the way his eyebrows are set, it kind of does a really good job of representing how kind of smug and disconnected he was in that scene. He's sitting there talking about music, and he's about to do something horrible. And yeah, this just captures it really nicely. I love that movie, and I'm happy to have this guy represented in my collection. And coming in at number 1, my favorite Funko Pop of the year. This was a Hot Topic exclusive, and there's no Hot Topics around me, so I was not able to get this, except for my little brother, who lives in Chicago. He was able to pick this up for me and mail it over. So this is Danger Days Gerard Way. So I'm a huge My Chemical Romance fan. I love Gerard Way, not just as a musical artist. Like, I'm a big fan of the work he did with My Chemical Romance, but also his solo stuff. But as a comic book creator, like I talked about earlier, the Umbrella Academy, which he created, he's a great guy. But that alone wouldn't necessarily make for a great figure. But My Chemical Romance, what they would do is they had almost every album was a concept album. So he kind of had a different character for every album. So I previously had the Gerard Way here from the Black Parade album, where you had the short bleach blonde hair, and they were kind of like this, I don't know, undead marching band or something like that. But then for the follow-up album, Danger Days, they played the Killjoys, which was this kind of, I don't even know. It's been a long time for me to try to remember the story, but there was a comic book series that tied in to the music videos, and there was this whole thing of these guys were kind of like, I don't know, bandits, we'll say, in this, kind of post-apocalyptic world, and there was an evil government corporation, and anyway, it was a cool little story. It could definitely be fleshed out more. I think there's currently a new miniseries being published that I haven't read yet, but I'm sure that will expand on the story. But anyway, when this album came out, I just really loved the look that they decided to go with. So Gerard's got this red hair, kind of this weird, the blue leather jacket, and the yellow laser pistol, the white pants. I'm kind of surprised they didn't give him his little mask. He had a little kind of, I don't know, domino mask almost. It was a little Halloween style mask that went around his eyes. It was yellow with stars on it. That would have been kind of cool if they had added that as well. But either way, I think it's a great figure. It really captures that look. I love the pose of him, just kind of standing there casually. He's not pointing his gun or look like he's ready to fight. He looks like he's kind of just awkwardly posing. And yeah, I think it really captures the character. And yeah, I really like it. It's bright, it's colorful, it's awesome. There you go. Those are my Funko Pops. So my top 58 of the year. So Do you agree, disagree? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. Maybe subscribe to the channel. I will be back with my top action figures of the year coming soon. And yeah, I don't intend to go through every one the way I did here, because I have about 200 action figures, and yeah, that would take a long time. So, but come back for that. So yeah, like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you soon. Thanks for watching. Ciao.